Hello there, I am Centaurian Mudpig, or Dan. Welcome along to my dev diary for October 2019. If you sort of like been following my last dev diary and the store page, you'll notice the game has not been released, but we do have a 2020 sometime next year date to be decided. The reason for that, I just realised there's just not enough content to release it as is, for it to be as good as I think it should be. And also the changes I'm doing are, well, let's just not call them changes, let's call them implementing new features, which would quite easily break any mission editor save files as they are. And I do not want to be worrying about making sure that changes I put in there are not going to break people's mission saves, as things are changing quite a lot and I'm adding new things in there. It just makes sense from a development perspective to wait until the level of the mission editor settles down a bit to be more like, yeah, this is practically what we need, what's gone in, and we're just adding flair and other stuff that uses existing functionality. Hope that makes sense. I want to show you the new implementation of power management that's gone into the game, and I think anyone familiar with space combat with X-Wing, TIE Fighter, Star Citizen, Elite Dangerous, Wing Commander 3 and upwards with power management features is quite simply, we've got the power bars there for engine, shield and guns. We're keeping it simple to those three, and basically we can increase power for one area and that'll take power from another one. So for example, we'll increase the power to our shields, and you'll also notice we've now got a little light green bar increasing. This is our overcharge, so we can overcharge our shields to beyond the maximum capacity when we increase the shields in there, or for the power on there. And then of course if we end up diverting it, we lose the charge. And one thing I haven't done though is, oh there we go, we also, if we've not got enough power in there, then the shields will lose power as well, and it will be below the normal operating, and we can just reset that and it'll start recharging. But not only that, but increasing power to shields also increases the recharge rate, so they charge a bit faster. For the guns, we're going to work differently. It doesn't reduce the amount of power for guns, it'll just stay there, given that the gun power isn't constantly being drained, is my thinking, whereas shields are always being drained. It needs power to maintain that shield, and just turning the power off means you lose your shields, whereas the guns, that power can sit there for a bit. It's more of a stored in an energy bank sort of thing. So when I start firing my guns, we've got a fairly decent recharge rate, but then put more power in it and we get a faster recharge rate there as well. And then when it comes to engines, so I think most people aren't familiar with, we've got vertical and horizontal thrusts, and right now if I use my vertical thrust, we've got a speed of -18 with the minimum power, but once I start putting power into the engines, you'll see that our maximum speed is actually increased there. And it's the same when it comes to acceleration and deceleration. So now our top speed is 98, but as I pump more power into the engines, we can increase our maximum speed, and that also increases our maximum, not our maximum, but the efficiency of the braking and acceleration speeds. So if I put more power in there, I'm going to decelerate a lot faster and accelerate a lot faster than, say, if I'd have less power in the engines. And it might be a bit difficult to show that. given that it affects the maximum speed you can go, but also affects the maximum speed of your afterburners as well. So you put more in there, and the faster you can go to get in or out of trouble. For the last month or so, I have been working on what I call conditional actions, and think of that as being sort of like your FreeSpace 2 editor, for those who are familiar with FreeSpace, where you can create your own missions using scripting. So if you've been watching these videos, you'll be familiar that currently the mission editor is more of like just putting down ships and objects in a game area or nav point areas to string up a sort of simple mission where you just basically kill enemies, destroy crates, or collect crates as you progress through a bunch of nav points. I feel that as it was, there really wouldn't be enough content to justify the game as it stands, and I'm basing that on the feeling that I had when I played Wing Commander Academy for the first time. I thought, oh wow, you can create your own missions in there, and all it boiled down to is what this is, or taking inspiration from, is to become a mission editor, that what Wing Commander Academy lacked. So while Wing Commander allows you to place objects down in a grid and play those missions and go through nav points, I would wanted that to be a bit more fleshed out, where I could have actually created some interesting missions in there and have things occur, like ships jumping in or jumping out, traveling from one place to another, and the game world reacting to both the player and other objects like fighters in that world. So I have decided that I'm going to work on and add what I'm calling conditional actions. And think of that as like your trigger and event systems, where you define a trigger for something to occur, such as like spawn an enemy. So we'll want to spawn an enemy, and that would be my trigger. So this trigger would be to spawn an enemy. If we wanted to, we'll have conditions. So we might as well want to say if there's any other opponents where there are none, then we could then spawn in a vessel and define, who's going to be controlling it, the alliance faction, if it's going to be the player or the opponent, the vessel, loadouts, pretty much as though you were going to plant one down in the game world. This would spawn one for you. A lot of these fields are empty and unpopulated. The last week or so, I've been working on the functionality of making sure that we've got the fields what I need in there. I mean, this one's fairly populated in there, and the fact that we've got data to populate in there. We can also add multiple conditions and then logic, whether it's an and or not, to go along in there. We can move them around if we wanted to. So it's still being worked on. Basically, the interface, this is the layout sort of going with and happy to go along with. And we can add multiple conditions which can string along and be triggered by others, or will trigger other conditions, etc. And then, of course, the whole saving and loading of it, which is in a JSON format. Unfortunately, Unity's JSON saving system is a bit pants for what I need to do, because it's a bit complex in that I've got classes nested within each other and whatnot. But I was able to find a third-party plugin which allows me to save it without the minimum work. I can just effectively pass the class, the base, the main class in, which has got all the other classes inside of it for like all these trigger conditions, the placements of objects, the player, and it will just save it in a JSON format without me having to like manually edit the structure, and it'll just do it for me. And this is basically the JSON format structure of the mission save. As you can see, got our playout loadout class. We've got our classes for weapons and secondary weapons. Our nav point class, which contains an array of nav points that we'll have in there, and then of course it contains the placements within there. Our conditional actions also within there, our trigger conditions and actions all listed within inside our save format. And like I say, just nice and easy. I can just pass it straight into the JSON formatter to serialize it. It creates this, spits out the file, and then I can deserialize it by loading the file, and it'll just put everything back in the class as required with minimum effort on my part. In the last dev diary, I did mention showing off the last couple of the ships that are in there and something special. Unfortunately, with this change of direction, it's not going to happen with what I wanted to do. Basically, this is my sarcophagus. This is like intended to be like a bomber class vessel, and I wanted to have like torpedoes or bombs that it could fire off, but as it is, there is no real objects that it could use its torpedoes against effectively, so that's why there's been nothing gone on with that, and it's now more focusing on the conditional actions for more things to occur. And this is the Sarcophilia, and this is meant to be a heavy role fighter. So not much speed, but lots of hit points on there to survive against the strongest of opponents. And of course we've got the guns to go along with the heavy, which we're showing off with the bolt plasmas, which are extremely short range, but they pack an absolute punch. They also drain a lot of power as well. And that's it for this dev diary. Work continues. It is slow progress, honestly, but I am working on this in like a part-time capacity with a full-time job, because I do not know how well this game is going to sell, especially given it's not going to be my first game, and I'm trying to promote it on Twitter. I've got the Steam page going on there. There's wish lists coming in, but it's very, very slow on there. I don't think paid advertising is going to be a way forward. Basically, that is what I did for my first product, which was like a YouTube uploader with defaults and other things, and it didn't sell anything even when I spent around about £400 worth of advertising in Facebook, Reddit and Google. No one seemed to be wanted to purchase that, and I can't be doing the same thing with this if that's not going to sell. If it starts for selling any products on Steam when it releases, then I can look at advertising and seeing if I can get more sales that way. I think maybe Steam as a platform, people are more willing to buy stuff from Steam than say direct from an unknown developer who's not very trusted, and especially one where I don't have a company. I can't be in a position to purchase what I need to buy to make a company in order that I can then buy security keys that when you download the game and install it and click play, that Windows 10 doesn't come up and say this is not trusted, because that'll put a lot of people off as well. No, that's me. It's enough me rambling there. It's just lots of things I've picked up off there. I'm going to be continuing on conditional actions. My hope is next dev diary we'll get to see these conditional actions working and seeing how it's set up. Until then, thanks for watching. Don't forget to go to Steam wishlist, add absolute territory to your wish list. Until then, Thanks for watching. Bye for now.